make more and keep more, this is for you. And today I am so excited because I brought one of my money gurus to this week's Real Talk. Yes, it's Miss Carrie Peters, superstar. What's up, Carrie Peters?
Hi. I'm so happy to be here. I love being on Real Talk. It makes me feel very special to be a guest.
Well, I have to say, first of all, I wore my money hat today because this one's it's like gold line. So it feels like, I got my money hat on. It also looks a little bit like I'm going clubbing.
Yeah, whatever.
And I was wondering, Carrie, did you bring a special mug? Because I know on Tuesday Tips, if you follow Tuesday Tips, give a shout out for Tuesday Tips on the comments. If you follow Carrie on Tuesday Tips every Tuesday. And, Carrie's got her mug usually. So what you got today?
Well, I picked a very special mug, and it is my leopard mug that I got from, I hate to tell you, I think it was Andrew actually, but leopard is we kind of call it a family crest. I'm sure we're not the only ones who like the leopard. But the thing that I picked about this, the thing that I liked is that we all learn about money from our families. That's where we first learn about what it is, how to handle it, what to believe about it, how much is okay to have, all of that. So I wanted to have my family represented in the mug. Yeah.
Well, I don't usually feature a beverage vessel, but I did bring some mug paraphernalia, and it's not exactly a mug, but it's like if a health coach had a mug, then and let's say a money health coach, let's see.
A green drink with Ben Franklin on it.
Oh, but that is not Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin has had a makeover, and now Ben Franklin is Stacey Morgenstern.
You always come up with the best stuff like
that. So this is my money honey.
I love that you drew your face onto Ben Franklin's face and the hair, in case you can't see the curly hair.
Yeah. Why don't any dollars have women on them? What?
Can we start there with the conversation?
So I am so excited today because we are going to talk about 5 money practices that feed prosperity. These are things you can start implementing today. But one of the reasons I wanted to have Carrie on for this conversation is that Carrie taught me once that if you're going to have money, then you need to start taking responsibility for your relationship with it. And I was like, betrayal. Whoa. That triggered me because I was mad at money when I was a kid. My family went through a very difficult bankruptcy. I had a brother who lost his leg in a motorcycle accident with no insurance, which put us in millions of dollars of debt. My parents went through a very messy divorce. So we really struggled financially, and I was mad at money. I felt like money owed me. And so I sort of crossed my arms at money, like waiting for money to make amends. And then I met Carrie, and I feel like you showed me that money's really a mirror. It mirrors back to us what we project onto it. So if we project scarcity and poverty onto it, then that's often what we get back. Do you have any short comment on that, Carrie?
Well, first of all, this is the first time I've ever heard you share that, so I'm fascinated. And second of all, yeah, I think that one of the things about money that's so important and why we need to look at the relationship to it, because whether or not you want to be a coach for the rest of your life or full-time or not, chances are good that you might want financial freedom. And if that's the case, then it's a good time to start exploring your relationship with money and start trying some of the money practices that we're going to share with you today so that you can have a different experience with money. I remember when I first started coaching, I'd been an actress for many, many years. I'd never really made A big year was $50,000. That was big. I mean, I must have gotten some national commercial or something that year because it was mostly like 25,000 to 30,000.
Finally got the douche commercial, didn't you?
I'd been hoping. I had been praying for so many years. Please let me represent a douche on television. That was what my conservatory training was for. All my theater school at DePaul University colleagues would be just thrilled for me.
Yes.
Carrie, you finally made it. Pardon the pun.
Well, before we get into our 5 money practices that we wanted to share, I thought it would be really fun to play a quick game with you. This will be like a 1-minute game. Are you up for a game, Carrie?
I am always up for a game, especially Stacey Morgenstern game.
Oh, good. So I want to do some myth busting on money triggers. So this is a little quick true or false. So here you go. Here's the first one. True or false? To earn more, I have to do more. And if I do more, I will earn more.
Well, that's false because you'd have to answer the question first. Do more of what?
Do more of what I don't like. So no pain, no gain.
No, that's still false. You'll have to do some of what you don't like, but you're not going to have to do tons of what you don't like. The hardest part with money is ripping off the Band-Aid and opening up to your relationship to it. After you've done that, it's not about doing more stuff that you don't like. It's about having clear action that reflects what you want for your result.
Ooh. Okay. Here's the next one.
Oh, there's another one. Okay.
Oh yeah, there's 2 more.
Oh.
If it doesn't hurt, this kind of goes piggybacking on the last one, but if it doesn't hurt or there's no pain with it, then I won't have earned my right to have it.
If it doesn't hurt or there's no pain with it, I won't have earned my right to have it.
And therefore, I won't ever earn my right to relax. How about that one?
Well, that has nothing to do with money. That has to do with the feeling that you never are allowed to relax.
That's like a deserving, right?
Well, there's a sense for all of us of like, if we ever turn off, the whole world is going to fall apart. And that's not true, but that's what we believe. So we say, well, if I have X amount of dollars, then I get to relax. I'm super guilty of this myself. If I have X amount, then I get to take a breath and relax. Guess what? You're going to have X amount and you're still going to be like, I can't relax.
So, yes, relaxation. That's the elusive part.
Yeah.
Okay, one more. True or false? There will never be enough, no matter how hard I try. It just never seems to be enough, or no matter how much I have, it's never enough.
Is it a true or false statement or? Oh, did I lose you?
Nope, I'm here.
Okay. Are you asking me, is that true or false?
Well, is it true or false for you? There will never be enough.
Oh, sometimes. On bad days, I'm going to be a bag lady, which would cracked me up in your copy. It's always a worry.
The thing that strikes me about this.
Yeah, you have to, some of the practices that we're going to just talk about in just a moment are going to help us understand there actually is a number that's enough. And the book that taught me this was Tony Robbins' Money, Master the Game, where he walks you through an exercise to help you understand really how much is enough to make in a year, how much is enough to stop working forever. And that the number may be smaller than you think, but you've got to get to a number. Otherwise, if you don't have that number, then it is going to feel constantly like never enough.
Boom. That's exactly what I was thinking, is that part of prosperity or a part of feeling abundant is knowing what enough is. Exactly. Otherwise, even the wealthy are never wealthy enough.
No.
You can't chase that one if you don't know what enough is.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's awesome. Let's dive into our practical money practices that feed prosperity. So Do you have some money practices that you'd be willing to share with us?
Well, of course. And the first one is being willing to get right with or get in alignment with the fact that you want money.
Wait,
I think
can I admit that?
yeah. And that's the first one, because a lot of times we don't admit it or we justify it like, well, I want it for this, or I want it for that, something other than me, or I want it for, and the fact is, I want it. Period. End of story. And I remember dating so many guys over the years who were somewhat ambitious, not crazy ambitious. And I would get so mad at them. Like, you could do so much more. Like, there's so many more opportunities that you could make so much more money. And this was not every guy I dated, but some. And I remember getting so mad and going, why don't you push harder for this? And you could make triple and blah, blah. And at the end of the day, I just had to accept that I was projecting onto them what I wanted for myself, but couldn't admit and get right with. I want money. I like money. I like the fact that it gives me options and freedom in my life. That's it.
That feels like a taboo thing to say, like dirty somehow, or at least that's how we've been conditioned. Isn't that scandalous to say that you want money? Isn't that shallow?
Well, that's what our concern is. That's what our worry is. But the truth is, because we're taught money is the root of all evil, and there's all kinds of judgments around people with money and whatnot. But I think there has to come like a time when you get sick enough of feeling like you never have enough, or like I was broke most of my 20s and into my early 30s. And I just got to the point where I hated it so much. I was like, I will not live this way anymore. I love money. I want money. I'm going to have money. End of story. And since that day, I've never looked back, and I still feel that way. I love it. I think the problem that we have is that there's a sense of like, if you have that disconnected from meaning, then having money itself or wanting money itself is just shallow. So that brings me to my second money practice, which is once you're aligned with or accept or admit like, hey, I love money and I want it, then you want to get, the next practice is to get clear on what you want the money for. So for me, like I said just a moment ago, Stacy, having money is not about money. It's about options. I heard a great quote from Chris Rock, the comedian, once. I think he said, having wealth is not about being rich. It's about having options. And I was like, yes, that's exactly right. Like, I want the freedom that money provides. And there are other things that I want. Like, I want to be able to do things for my daughter. I want to be able to do things for myself. I don't care very much personally about like Jimmy Choo shoes, for example, but I would give anything to have a housekeeper. Like, do you know what I mean? We all have different things that we value, and that's totally fine. Like, there may be somebody who's like, I want money because I love Jimmy Choo shoes and I want 100 pairs of them. Great. Fabulous. But we want to get clear on what are those things that are meaningful to you, that you want and want to use money for.
Yeah, that reminds me of something, which I call psychic return on investment when making buying decisions. And I remember at a time in my life where I used to go to a restaurant, for example, and look at the menu and look immediately at the prices to decide what I can have versus knowing what I love and then deciding what to order. And this happened actually when I was becoming a health coach as well. It was back in 2004 or so. I was living in San Francisco, one of the most expensive cities in the country, barely making more than minimum wage, which at the time was like $10 an hour. I was still paying off college debt. The job was sucking me dry. I really wanted a change, and I had a huge passion for health and nutrition and cooking and personal growth. I was like, when it comes to personal growth, I was like a dog with its tongue hanging out of its mouth, leaning out the window on a spring day. Just couldn't get enough. You like that one?
I did.
Personal growth. Yeah.
I
want to eat it. And when I discovered that actually you could get paid to be your best self, that this was actually a career, that you could wake up every day, you know, with your green juice and be choosing things that actually had you feel the best you could possibly feel. I thought, you can get paid for that? That's a real job. And then I thought, wow, my jaw dropped. I found my dream job. This idea that I could literally be on the payroll to feel amazing and inspire others to feel amazing almost felt like a spiritual quest. So I started researching all these schools, and there were these cheapo programs for $500 that you'd get your certificate at the end. And then I started finding programs that were $8,000 or $7,000. And I kept looking at this $500 program and this $8,000 program. And it was really hard at first to justify the $8,000 because I was making $10 an hour. So I didn't have money laying around. But as I kept looking at that $500 program, I wasn't excited. It was the practical choice, but I wasn't excited, and I couldn't get the other one off my mind. And I went through this whole rabbit hole of the injustice that I don't get to have what I want, and it's money's fault. I'm so mad at money that I can't have what I want. And I just kept thinking, but I want that program. And it was, at the time, it really felt like such a stretch for me. And yet some voice was like, but you could save money if you just do one of those decent but not thrilling programs. And it was my logical mind against my true heart, right? And I knew all along which program was right for me, but the mind had to do its thing until I could open my heart fully to the possibility that lay before me. And what I realized was that there's a disempowered way of making a buying decision in a more empowered way. And when you were saying, like, you got to know what you want your money for, and when you were talking about the Jimmy Choos versus the housekeeper, is actually knowing what pays you back joy dividends. And this is what I've come to call the psychic return on investment, that is not typical. It's not the way we normally make buying decisions where we go, can I afford it? Or something like that. It was like, no, wait, there's actually a value, a return here that's a little intangible. And that's what I call a joy dividend. So now when I'm deciding, wow, this is out of my money comfort zone, it's more than I would typically spend, but I ask myself two questions. Do I need this? And then I ask, do I really love it? And I mean love by all capital letters. Like, do I love it? And if the answer is yes to those two questions, then I know I'm not wasting one penny, and I don't waste any time basically in the conflict of whether or not I'm wasting the money on something that I don't love. And there is a really big difference here on getting the one that is the practical choice that maybe saves you money, but you're still longing for the other thing. It's like eating Carrie, if you've ever like tried to save fat or calories by eating the good for you cookie kind of thing, like, oh, I'm going to eat the one that's low fat so that it's not so bad. But then you eat that one and you still want the other one. So then you end up eating both.
Exactly. Or you have 3 of the low fat cookies until you finally realize, like, damn it, I want the thing. And then you've had 3 of the cookies and then the thing, and you know, that definitely happened.
Yeah. So I feel like this is really key. I'm curious what you think about this joy dividends or this psychic return on investment in relationship to money as a money practice.
Well, I think it's key because when you are getting clear about what you want your money for, chances are good that you want it for the things that are going to bring you the most joy. I think what's hard is when we feel like there's something that's going to bring us joy, but we worry what other people would judge about what it is that we want. Like, how would someone else judge me if this is what I wanted? How am I judging me for what I want? And being able to release judgment and go, no, this is what I want. So for these first two steps, it's so much about releasing judgment and going, yes, I want money, and here's what I want it for, and not having to worry about other people's opinions about it, worrying about judging yourself about it, or having to justify in any way what it is that you want. I think one of the most incredible things about money is that you don't have to answer to anyone. This is why I love money. Another reason, like, no one is in charge of you when you have it. And that's what I wanted. I didn't have that for so long. And I remember having to ask my parents for help at times as an actress, and just feeling like I couldn't take care of myself. That was another reason why I wanted to have money, because I wanted to create my life the way I wanted it, not how anybody else wanted it. At the time I was single when I started making money. I was actually dating someone, and that's a story for another video. But anyway, he was not in love with what I was doing and how much money I was making and what I started to spend. This was someone who had a serious poverty mindset and was like, not about it. And I remember thinking, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm going to make a lot of money and we're going to break up. And we did, thank God. But of course I wish him the best, and I'm sure he's good. But in any case, there's a sovereignty that you get to have when you have your own money. And when you get to use money for the things that you value most, you get to feel expressed in your life. You get to feel like you're creating the life that fits you like a glove.
Well, I really love that. And when people ask us what makes HCI unique, I think one of the things is that we do talk about money and we teach these money practices. And I have such a more empowering relationship to money through really what you've modeled and taught me about that, about taking responsibility for my relationship with money, which brings me to our third money practice.
Yeah. So these are some tangibles. So once you've gotten aligned with the fact that I want it, and then you're clear on what you want it for, then it's really time to start engaging with it in a new way and start really connecting into money. And some practical ways to do that are, one, to check your bank balances. A lot of times we don't look because we're afraid, but we need to look because that's connecting in. The second thing to do is start reviewing credit card statements, making sure that that you're doing that on a regular basis, because the truth is there's money going out the door on your statements that you're not aware of. So you may actually have more money than you think if you were to cancel some of the recurring charges on those credit cards. I'm just looking at my note. Oh yeah. So looking at bank balances, reading credit card statements, making sure all the charges are correct, canceling all the things that you don't need anymore. Stacey, I just did this. I created a spreadsheet called the Savings Project because in the last 2 years with such a difficult time with postpartum, I just couldn't track what was happening. And so there's so much more money spent than normally would have been, because that happens in a crisis situation. So I made a spreadsheet of savings, and I went through my credit card statements, and it was like $200 in recurring charges that I just needed to cancel. So here's the thing. If you're having, third thing, bank balances, credit card statements, and tracking expenses, because whether you use Mint or QuickBooks or a bookkeeper or whatever it is, you have to know what's going out the door. A bonus tip here is to track what's coming in the door. I've been keeping track of every amount of income that's come into my possession. We teach this in our mastery course. It's called a money tracking sheet, because we are so used to tracking expenses, but we also want to track income, because where attention goes, energy flows. So if you're jotting down every single day what's coming to you, whether it's money from work or an insurance reimbursement check or a check from your grandma for $30 for your birthday, like, it all counts. And when you start looking at that amount of income, it starts to expand.
You know, Carrie, I used to think that when I first started working with you and you would talk about these money practices, I thought, well, if I start paying attention to that stuff and you're telling me to look at my statements, I'm just going to get depressed because I'm going to see that I'm living beyond my means, or I'm going to have to get real with that. And that's actually going to make me realize how much I don't have. And I get critical on myself. And what I learned over time is that it's actually liberating. It puts you in the driver's seat to make good choices and update your choices. So instead of it being a disempowering exercise, it became an empowering exercise. And I just wanted to point that out because I really resisted those money practices. And then I found once I got aware of what was coming in and going out, magic happened. The money
absolutely. And practically speaking, if you know where you want to go, let's see, we were just talking about that number, how much is enough, for example, to earn in a year or whatever. If you know where you want to go, you have that number. You can't know how to get there until you know where you are. There's the example, Stacey, I think you gave in one of our trainings, like if someone dropped you in the middle of the Northeast and said, go to Boston, and you'd be like, but I don't know where I am. You know, you can't get started until you know where you are. And that's what these practices are about. And yeah, it might hurt. It's gonna, for sure, listen, I was already so depressed and upset when I started doing this. It got to the point where I was like, nothing can be worse than what I'm already experiencing. The pain around money is so bad that looking at this is not a whole lot worse.
Well, by the way, there's some incredible comments. Claire is saying, very good advice as an ex-accountant. I agree this stuff really matters. And Adrian saying, yes, knowledge is empowering. And Tammy making a public declaration. I love money. I want money. Money gives me freedom of choice. So, and Kathy saying, love that you're sharing your practices on money. It's a very scary area. And when you have these practices, it doesn't have to be scary. And I think this is the making friends with money part, is that it doesn't have to be scary. Money's not out to get you. Money
is actually your ally. Money wants to help you have whatever it is that you want. We become afraid of it because we're kind of taught to be. I mean, when in our lives, really, in our education system, are we taught about money? Some of you might have been. My parents tried school a little bit, but I mean, not at all. And this is one of the single most important things in our lives. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. So at some point, if you're deciding, I want to have an experience of plenty and abundance with money, you have to be the one to jump in and do the work.
I love that. Okay, so let's go on to our next money practice. I believe this is number 4.
Yes, I think this one is getting comfortable with the idea of plenty. Is that right, Stacey?
Getting comfortable with the idea of plenty. Say more.
Well, I'm going to say more about that. So here's the thing. When I was broke for so many years, I had tons of credit card debt, and I was used to that. I had an identity of myself as somebody who was broke. I am broke. I have debt. And I didn't have a vision of myself as someone who had enough. Like, if someone asked me to imagine, like, what would it be like for you if you made $100,000 a year? I was like, I don't even have any sense of that. I have no sense of that. And so this practice is about getting connected in a different way, a more tangible way, to what it would be like to have plenty, to what it would be like to have money. And it's a challenge that I'll present to you, which is to take some time in the next weekend, perhaps, and go into a place that has something expensive that you want and imagine having it. You don't have to spend any money for this. You can if you want, but you don't have to. The idea is if you love clothes, for example, but I remember, Stacy, in my early 30s, like I shopped at Forever 21 and Target. That was it. I mean, Nordstrom to me was like.
I thought it was called Forever 41.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. At the time it was Forever 32 when I started. Now it's Forever 44. Actually, I think it's even beyond. I can't. And I'm not 44 yet.
And beyond.
Yeah. I do sometimes go for jewelry though. It's so cheap and awesome. But shopping at Nordstrom to me was like, yeah, I couldn't afford it. And it seemed crazy. So the idea is to go to a place that you'd want to shop and go try on clothes. Imagine, you don't have to buy one piece of clothing, but imagine that what would I be like? What would my life be like? What would it be like? Who would I be if I was someone who shopped here and wore these clothes? If you love expensive shoes, go try them on. Walk around in the shoe, literally walk in the shoes of you, who's someone who buys this kind of shoe. Or if you love cars, you could go to like a Range Rover dealership and test drive a Range Rover, or I don't know, whatever car you think is amazing. And to be like, who am I as the person driving this car? And it may feel funny and awkward because, like I can't buy this, but it doesn't matter. This is about using your imagination and about getting a taste, a real physical, sensorial experience and taste of what it would be like to be somebody who can drive this kind of car or wear this kind of stuff. Or
what comes up for me with that, Carrie, as I just even imagine the experience of going to a car place, for example, and I don't know, getting into a Ferrari or something, and I notice immediately I tense up, like I almost feel like vomiting, and I have judgment, like going like, ew, I would be some kind of selfish person if I like that, materialistic or something. Is like there's a way that almost I'm noticing judgment could come up of what it means to have money.
Beautiful. And that's where you get to explore that judgment and go, wow, do I have judgment about people with money? Do I immediately assume that someone with money is shallow or whatever? Because if I feel that way, then I'm not going to let myself become someone with money, because then I'm going to worry that I'm going to become one of them, someone I don't like. Well, the truth is money is a magnifier. It magnifies who you already are. If you're a jerk and you have money, you're going to become more of a jerk. If you're a good-hearted person and you have money, you're going to become a good person with money. I mean, it's not going to change you. But part of the exercise is getting to see what judgments come up. What do I think about myself? How do I retain my treasured values about who I am and have money?
Ooh, I love that. Treasured values. Well, this just feels like a great exercise. So the practice is to go out and have an experience of yourself as someone who has plenty. Not that you have to buy anything. This is not necessarily about going out and going on some kind of money spree. Yeah. Right. It's just actually to step into someone who's not preoccupied from checking prices and worrying, and just to allow yourself the visceral feeling of someone who has plenty. Right. Is that right?
Yeah. And you realize that like, this isn't going to change. First of all, you realize who you are and who you're not. I did this and I went to Barney's, and what I realized was I don't like Barney's. It's a very fancy store, but it didn't suit me. And so I learned that like, oh, wow, I could be this person, but I actually prefer like Nordstrom or Bloomingdale's, and that's fine. So you don't have to be someone, like you might go and find as you sit in a Ferrari, like, I don't really like Ferraris, but this is an interesting experience. Another thing to do is to go on open house tours for an expensive homes that you would love. I did that in Los Angeles a lot. On Sundays, there'd always be open houses I lived in Studio City, and I would just go in and look and be like, what would it like to live in here without feeling badly that I didn't. I had a little 1-bedroom apartment. I loved that place, but I would just go explore and see, what is it like? I mean, this is kind of interesting. How might it be if I lived here?
Well, I want to bring us to our 5th money practice, which is one that I'd love to kick off. That came to mind piggybacking off of this last one. And this doesn't require you to go into a store or a house or a car, is simply to appreciate the prosperity you already have. And most of us have considerable prosperity in our lives. And often we're so busy pursuing our unmet desires that we're unable to enjoy all that we already have. And I know this is true. I'm saying this from a place of, I need to hear this right now for myself. So don't think that I've actually healed all of my own money or poverty mindset or challenges. I'm always a work in progress too. And I do, when I pay attention to the ways in which my needs are met, start noticing how prosperous I already am. So it's like allowing ourselves to really appreciate the prosperity we've created is a big step towards opening to even greater wealth.
I love that.
Yeah. So I forgot to bring my throne reading, but I wondered, Carrie, if we could just throw out some books that have been great resources. I know you mentioned one from Tony Robbins. Can you mention that one again that had that great money practice?
Yes, it's called Money, Master the Game. And I loved it because I really wanted to learn about what do I really do with money? I mean, what is investing? How do I know how much is enough? And I thought it was just very clear and accessible. It's dense, but you can get through it. And I actually feel like it left me feeling really hopeful that I would get where I wanted to go. Another book that I absolutely loved is called Money, and it's by a guy named Felix Martin. Ooh. And it talks about the history of money and helped me understand, through the years, what is this thing we call money? It's a social currency in which we trade trust. It's not an inherent value of gold or dollars or any of that. If all of that went away, we'd find something else to trade. And it was such an interesting look at that, to realize that money is about value and trust. And those are things that I can invest in, right? So I loved that one.
Woo! So good. One of the books that I love is by Lynn Twist, called The Soul of Money. And she talks about in that book that money, that we have the opportunity to put money in the direction of our highest commitments. And when we do, that it nourishes our world and it nourishes ourselves. And I just think that's, wow, what a beautiful orientation. So really noticing, what are you funding now? Are you funding your fears, or are you financing your faith? And just to bring back to, this is one of the reasons why I love Pillar 3 of the Become a Health Coach program, is where we really talk about your relationship to money. You're going to heal your money legacy. You're going to really get to look at what is your trigger around money? What do you have to learn from money? What does money have to teach you? What is the possibility of the relationship that you could have? And I think that's something that really no other school teaches. And if that's intriguing to you, then come check us out.
And can I tell you why that's insane? Please, tell me why that's insane. Because if you're a coach, you make your money by getting clients. And the way that you get clients is by inviting them to become your client. And in every single conversation where you're inviting someone to become your client, you're talking about money. Every single conversation. So for the rest of your career as a health coach, even if you don't work for yourself, you might work for a doctor's office or supplement, whatever, you're going to be talking about fees. You're going to, with every single, if you work with 2,000 people over the course of your coaching career, that's 2,000 money conversations. So are we all going to go la, 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 and pretend like this is not a thing we have to address? And that's what most coaching schools are doing, and why I'm so proud that at Become a Health Coach, we are not doing that and helping you start to navigate this issue.
Well, I absolutely love that. And if you want to go learn more, go to healthcoachinstitute.com to learn more about how we're redefining the field of health coaching. And this does include making friends with money. So I hope you enjoyed this. And in fact, why don't you post in the comments something that you're taking away from this episode of Real Talk? Please post something in the comments that you loved or that triggered you. And if you like it, give it a like, share it with someone else who maybe has envisioned themselves as a bag lady and it's time for them to update their money practices. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm Stacey Morgenstern, that's Carrie Peters, and we'll see you next week on Real Talk every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Bye, everyone.